It's been a week since the launch of Warhammer 40,000 Armageddon, the new 11th edition launch set, and the reviews are in, games are being played, but you've held off. So why don't we have a look in the box and see what you get for your money, decide is it worth it, and is it right for getting back into Warhammer 40,000. So let's take a look. Hello and welcome to Keep It, the refuge for those of us who want to take a breather from the online world of debate, conflict and controversy surrounding some of our favourite hobbies. A place where we just want to have a laugh, enjoy some pieces we assemble, paint and ultimately game with our favourite minis from our favourite games about brutal conflict and war. And so we're going to take a look at this in what is hopefully the first of many videos of unboxing. And this is the 11th edition of Warhammer 40,000. It launched a week ago and it is called Armageddon. Now, for those of us of a certain age, it really does look like one of the historical sets. But is it right for getting into Warhammer 40,000? Does it light a fire under you in terms of, do you think, do you know what, I might give that a go? So let's have a look at the box and find out. So let's get into it. I think the first thing then that strikes me about this box is its heft and its weight. I mean, with 61 minis and a load of books and cards in it, it's going to be heavy, but you know, it feels like you're getting a lot for your money on this one. First striking thing about the box is the box art itself. You've got the iconic Blood Angels captain in the middle of a battle surrounded by orcs and his brothers as they fight. For those of us of a certain age who got into the hobby in the second edition, this is so reminiscent of that classic second edition. And I think that's deliberate. I think they are pulling on the old retro heartstrings on this one. And you know what? I don't mind. On the back of the box, you've got typical Games Workshop fare here. So you've got the two armies involved, you've got the orcs and you've got the Blood Angels, you've got the box contents and you've got the set of minis that are in this. We'll go through this in a bit more detail later on, probably on screen, so I'm not going to dwell on it now. So let's get into the box. What do you get? Okay, so first things first, you've got a great big pile of grey plastic. I don't know what the statute of limitations is, at which point this goes from grey pile of ambition and an exciting new addition to grey pile of shame. Maybe you can comment below on that. But we'll move past the minis for now. We'll look at them last. And we'll move on to the rest of the box. So first things first, you met with this new transfer sheet. So on the orc side, you've got the White Scars, Goths, Evil Sons, Bad Moons and some sort of general icons. On the Space Marine side, you've got the Crimson Fists, the Salamanders, the Ultramarines, and of course the Blood Angels that the set features. Now it's worth saying that the Space Marine minis in this set are agnostic in terms of you can set them up as whatever chapter you want. You know, there's no sort of Blood Angel moulding on these models, but obviously the Blood Angels are the feature here. It's probably 30 years since I've seen a Orc transfer sheet, and it's pretty cool actually. I think when I collected in second edition, I was Evil Sons. Onto the rest of the box then, you've got this really nice document holder. So you've got Armageddon emblazoned across the front. It's relatively thin, and inside you've got the following. We've got the Operation Imperator Codex, sorry, not Codex, Law Book. So in here you've got all the information about Armageddon, the factions involved, some of the backstory, some really nice illustrations about your new minis made up. Some of the scenarios at play, but also I've noticed at the back end of this you've got some description of some of the other factions as well, which I think is a nice touch for beginners getting into the hobby. You know, so there's not just about Blood Angels and Orcs here. There's a bit about different factions, different chapters, and also at the end there I noted there's some stuff about chaos in there as well. So I think for a starter, this is a nice storybook. It's an A4 hardback, pretty typical Games Workshop fare. Will look nice on your shelf. Onward from that then, we've got the assembly instructions. I think by 2026, Games Workshop have pretty much nailed this, apart from one notable recent exception for those of us who collect Ultramarines. And yeah, you know, standard stuff. I think you've got some variables here, some options when you're assembling to make sure you get some variety. They are push fit, they're single pose. Obviously, there might be some variety launched at a later date in that respect. You've got the A5 softback core rules book, which is really handy size, chuck in your bag. I like having a physical book for the rules. You can argue about apps and updates and whatnot on that. I think that's some recent controversy going on. But do you know what? Can't beat a good core rule book. Then you've got the data slides or the data cards for each army. So you've got the Blood Angels and the Orcs on the illustration there. If I pop this open really quickly, we can see you've got a card for each unit. You've got the Space Marines, the captain there, we've got the war boss there, and you've got all of the rules on a single nice piece of card. Again, pretty handy size, take with you on the day. And then finally on this side of things, you've got the card decks. So you've got the Dominatus card deck. So this allows you to run a campaign across a weekend, gives you some scenarios, gives you some stories and some set piece battles between a couple of different factions. So it allows you and your friends to maybe run a weekend of battles and actually move the story of Armageddon forward. That's pretty nice. We'll look at that in a different video on a different day. We've then got the chapter approved 26-27 deck of cards, which is about sort of single missions within a battle, some secondary objectives, and allows you to add some spice and some variety to each of your battles. Again, a nice big hefty deck that we'll do in the video with the Dominatus set. Onto the minis then. And let's quickly focus on a couple, because we could go through all of the sprues, but I think the first thing I wanted to focus on is this Weird Boy. So this is obviously one of the more iconic minis that's come out of the set so far. You can see this is good quality moulding, good quality sculpt. This is 2026 Games Workshop. It's really, really good quality, and I think it'd be relatively easy to assemble, but also looks like it'd be quite a lot of fun to paint too. On the Space Marine side, there's lots of options. Let's pick out the Captain here. Again, iconic off the front of the box. You've got his cloak. We've got the tactical rock here. You've got the power sword, the relic shield, etc. Again, looks like great quality sculpting, and should be a lot of fun to put together and paint. Okay, so I thought it'd be useful if I just jumped across really quickly to the official Warhammer community page, which gives you a really nice made-up view of the minis in this set. So on the Space Marine side, starting top left, we've got the Captain with his relic shield and his power sword and his tactical rock. We've got a new Librarian also with tactical rock. We've got, I think, which is the standout Space Marine mini in this set, which is the Chaplain with jump pack. I think that's going to look great in a Blood Angels army. We've got an Ancient with a banner, which is going to be a pain in the arse to paint. We've got 10 monopose intercessors. Right now, I don't think you can mess around with a loadout of those, but apparently there's going to be some future releases that you can maybe get a bit more variety in. We've got 3 Eradicators with heavy bolters. We've got 5 Vanguard Vets, bit of controversy around those. I think people just generally aren't pleased with those, and they're not sort of glitzy enough, I guess. They don't look veteran enough versus the kind of the standard jump pack Marines that we've got from 10th edition. We've got a new Land Speeder, which is a nice mix-up versus that old metal one that we had in the previous long ago that kept falling off its stand. On the Orc side, really character heavy. So we've got a War Boss, we've got a Big Boss, we've got a Banner Knob, and we've got a Pain Boy. These are really nice sculpts, actually. I think Orcs, by the looks of it, have probably been needing a bit of a refresh. And particularly the Weird Boy that we looked at from a sprue perspective, that's a really fun model. I think it's going to be great to put together, great to paint. Got 20 boys, a bit like on the Space Marine side. I think they're single post, single loadout, but again, probably more variety to come. I think as I film this, some announcements went out last night about some future Orc releases. 10 Gretchen, 2nd edition veterans like me remember the 30, 40, 1000 single pose Gretchen that came in that original box set. I remember making my mum sit and paint half of those for me. So a smaller amount with a bit more variation is definitely welcome. There is a War Track in there, which looks like a really cool bike mini there. I remember the old War bikes. That's probably one of my favourite actually old 2nd edition models was the Orc War bikes. It used to cost a £5. Long time ago now. And Big Mech Dakar Rig, the kind of walking mech. Again, bit of a far cry from that cardboard dreadnought that we got in the 2nd edition box set. I keep mentioning 2nd edition purely because this is such a kind of a harking back to that golden era. So yeah, that's what you get from a mini perspective, made up, assembled and painted. And we've covered it off, but you can see the books and the cards that you get in the set too. So there we go, Armageddon, the 11th edition of Warhammer 40,000 has just launched and the beginning of a new era. Some really good factions, some exciting new minis and plenty of lore, data sheets, card decks, and 61 minis for your money is pretty good value, I think. Is it the right set for getting back into Warhammer 40,000? Well, that kind of depends. If you fancy the Space Marines, or even better, I think, if you fancy the Orcs, then yeah, probably a good place to start. You'll need some bits and pieces to go with it, so probably things like measures, dice, glue, paints, and importantly some scenery, which is probably a video in itself. But for those of us of a certain age, you'll be used to rocks and boxes and making your own. I think there's a whole world of enjoyment there, but Games Workshop are selling some now really high quality looking pre-painted scenery, but it ain't cheap. So yeah, I think this is a good place to kick things off if you're looking to get back into the hobby. If you do need any of those bits and pieces to help you assemble or paint your army, then you can check out my website, link below. I'm trying to curate a list of things that I think are good in terms of paints and brands of toolkits, etc. It will all be tried and tested by me, and you'll see some review videos coming up in due course. Otherwise, I'd like to thank you for your time. If I'd be super grateful if you gave me a like or even a subscribe if you've enjoyed what you've seen here, and doubly grateful if you gave me any kind of feedback at all in that comment section. But in the meantime, welcome back to Warhammer 40,000, and until next time, see you later.